What up, B Squad? It is your boy JB, and I am here today, you guys, with another review for the Braxtons Season 2, Episode 3. The episode was titled Unbreak My Heart, you guys. So, before I get into it, if you guys are watching this video or any other video on the channel, and you guys are not yet subscribed to the channel, then I need you guys to do me a solid favor and stop taking me out on this date and having me pay for it at the end of it. You guys know the routine. You can do me that favor by liking the video, subscribing to the channel, turning on your post notifications, you guys, and also by sharing the video. And with that out of the way, without further ado, let us discuss the Braxtons, shall we? Okay, you guys. So this episode, I realized it last week, but I really cemented on it this week. So every episode is going to start with the big blow up until we get to it. So it looks like the big blow up is going to be in next week's episode. So what I'll do next week is, instead of doing a pre-recorded review for it, we will actually go live to discuss it, because there are some revelations that have come out in that scene, because they've already, in this episode, it started out and we see Tamar, Tony, Tawanda, and Trina, right? So they're sitting down. Now, this time we're getting a different scene. We're not getting the same scene that we've gotten in the last two episodes, where it's Tony and Tamar going back and forth, right? So in this one, Tamar is upset with the girls, talking about this cease and desist, and that, they sent it to her home. And so Tawanda is like, well, I don't know where you live. And, Tamar is like, of course you don't know where I live, but I know where you live because I put the down payment on your home and you've been stealing from me for years. And I was like, oh, wow. Wasn't expecting that. And so then Tawanda says to Tamar, and you've been stealing too. And she was like, I ain't stole nothing from nobody. And she's like, you stole Tony's man. And I was like, oh, she stole Tony's man. And so she said, they going back and forth. And so Tawanda name dropped somebody. Now, whose name she said, I do not know, because they bleeped it out. So I don't necessarily know what man Tawanda is alluding to. But let Tamar tell it. The same person that Tawanda is trying to say that Tamar slept with is, he also said that he slept with Tawanda. And I'm like, wow, y'all some trifling. Like, if this is the case, y'all are all trifling. But okay, very interesting. So then, we go into the episode. And like I said, this one, now we're 2 weeks away from the big blow up, right? Now, we opened this episode officially with Trina. Now, you guys remember Trina had to leave Tulum early because Vaughn had some health issues, right? So she gets home and she's talking to Vaughn, and Vaughn is just letting Trina know that what happened is he didn't want to. Seems like he didn't want to burden Trina. So what he did was he wanted Trina to still go on the trip to Tulum and have fun. So what he decided to do was he decided that once he dropped her off, he would then go from there to urgent care. And so when he got to urgent care, that's when they told him that he had fluid on his all over his body, right? And he also said that the doctors weighed him, and he weighed in at 309 pounds. I was like, my God, that's a lot of weight. Ooh. And I was like, but and this should be a wake up call. I hope it is a wake up call, Devon, like to take care of your health. And, as we get older, you gotta, your body is not the same as it was when it was in its 20s and even 30s, right? Like, you still have to do maintenance and upkeep on your body. So he said when they got the fluid off of him, they removed about 30 pounds worth of fluid, which brought him down to 279 pounds. I was like, yikes. Ugh. But, prayers up to Vaughn. Prayers up Devon. You don't want anything bad to happen to anybody, right? So then the next scene, now this scene with Tony, it wasn't really a whole lot with Tony in this episode. The only thing that we saw, you guys remember that Tony is getting ready for this jazz festival that she's going to be performing at. And that's really all we saw. So this jazz festival is all her, no Cedric, no nothing. It's gonna be, I think they said about 45 minutes, but either way it go, it's gonna be all Tony. And it's so, and you guys, Tony has the health issue, so she's just talking about that. And that was really it with that scene. It wasn't really much to discuss with that scene. So the next scene that we get is with Tamar. Now we see Tamar. So Tamar is meeting up. She's not meeting up. She's going to do T.S. Madison's podcast. Now I did not know that Maddie had a podcast. I knew that Maddie did the show with Craig, but I didn't know that Maddie had a podcast, right? So, Madison asked Tamar, like, what's the tea when it comes to your niece? And so Tamar let Madison know, like, I have a cease and desist. So at this point, I can't even speak on it. So Maddie asked her, like, well, how do you feel? And she was like, a cease and desist. So I can't speak on it. And, initially I felt the way about Tamar. But now when I really sit and think about it, it's like, why did y'all send her a cease and desist when Ashley still filmed? So what are y'all like so upset about? She still filmed. She was still on Tamar's podcast. So what was the purpose of the cease and desist? Like, that's my real true question, is what was the real purpose of the cease and desist, right? So then, Maddie is talking to Tamar because Maddie lets Tamar know that, Craig feels like when it comes to the Braxtons, that the family lives off of drama. And I was like, well, I do agree. But Tamar feels differently. Tamar's also offended by what Craig said. And I was like, but Tamar, I mean, your family drama has even with the initial Braxton family values, drama surrounded y'all from the time y'all started that show. Drama surrounds this show. Drama surrounds you. But Tamar feels, she feels offended by that. And I was just like, I don't know how you feel offended by that. Like, I'm a little confused, but I mean, if Tamar wants to feel offended, then cool. So then they play this game of villain era, right? So Tamar doesn't feel that, she is a villain, but she does feel like her villain era was the original Braxton family values. And what I will say to you, Tamar, because she said her sisters always called her a villain. And yes, are we going to sit here and say that her sisters have not called her a villain? Absolutely. But the problem for me when it comes to you, Tamar, is that you are a bit of a villain. Because I feel like what Tamar was trying to allude to is that she does, the drama that she gets involved in, it doesn't be at her, at her fault, right? Which, again, I have to disagree with that, right? I'm going to bring up two scenarios where Tamar got involved in some drama that she caused. The first one is the drama with K. Michelle. You and K. Michelle went back and forth with each other because you got involved in something that had absolutely nothing to do with you. K. Michelle's beef was with Rashida and Toya. But because you were friends with Rashida and Toya, you then decided to insert yourself in something that had nothing to do with you. Another person that you start with and she doesn't start with you is Candy. Candy has never really started anything with you. It's always you starting with her. She responds. Most times she ignores you and then you say something. So yeah, Tamar, we can say some of it is your sister's, but you also have to look in the mirror and be able to hold yourself accountable as well. That's all I'll say. The next thing we get is Tawanda. So Tawanda is out for her dress fitting. And the man is like, okay, so we got like what 2 or 3 months into your wedding. And Tawanda was like, no, we got like 2 to 3 weeks into my wedding. And I was like, wow, I would never want to be in a situation like that where I'm rushing to get anything together for a party, a wedding, anything like that. Like, I am not a last minute person. That is the one thing about me. I like to plan things in advance. So that way, anything that can go wrong, if it goes wrong, we can nip it in the bud before we get to that final day, right? And they even mentioned like maybe, postponing the wedding just a little bit. But no, Tawanda was, laser focused on that date of March 22nd, which we did see that she and Sean did get married, right? Now, we also found out because they were talking about the dresses, right? So she has everyone's dress sizes with the exception of Tony's and Tamar's. And she also let it be known that, Tony said that she was going to be throwing a bridal shower, but Tony's not throwing a bridal shower. So then we see Tawanda as she tried on the dresses. That first dress, I was like, what the hell is this? It was giving an Angel Brinks original, but it was also giving like a figure skater kind of look. And I was like, oh God, this is not it. So then they came out there and it was just like the skirt of her dress. And I was like, okay, if Tawanda likes it, then I love it for Tawanda. But for me personally, I wasn't wowed by it. But I mean, again, like I said, if Tawanda likes it, then I 100% love it for Tawanda. I'm not going yuck on her yum. That's not something that I'm going to do. But that's that. Now, the next thing we have is Trina and Vaughn. So Trina is going through the pantry to basically get rid of the unhealthy things that they have in the pantry. And what I will say is, although diet is part of weight loss as well, you got to take diet and exercise. And what I've learned over the years with me being in a gym and all that kind of stuff, I've learned that you can still eat the things that you like and love. It's the real key to maintaining a healthy lifestyle is, yes, you do want to change. If you eat unhealthy foods, you do want to sprinkle in some healthy food options. But the biggest thing when it comes to like workout is you want to burn more calories than you intake. And you can still enjoy the things that you like, right? Now, you don't have to eat them every day, eat them in moderation. That is one thing that I will say. So then we had this scene where Tony was supposed to be filming, but instead they had to cut filming because Tony had to go to Atlanta because something was going on with Miss E. Now we found out from Tamar that her and Logan, they were the night before, they were getting ready to pray before going to bed. And Logan mentioned praying for her mother who was going into surgery. And I was like, wow. So none of the girls knew that Miss E was going into surgery. So we then do see as the girls are all, I think it was just mostly Tamar and Trina that were at the hospital. We see Miss E in the hospital bed, and you could tell that she had just come out of surgery not too long because she was groggy, she was disoriented because they were like, she was like, she saw the cameras and she's like, what are they doing here? And they were like, Mommy, you're famous. And she's like, I'm famous. And Tamar was like, yes, Mama, you famous. You got famous daughters. You're on a reality show. Now, the fact that Tamar keeps saying that, they're the longest running Black family reality show, 12 years. Y'all had a break in between them 12 years, Tamar. Because let's see. When was the last episode of Braxton Family? The last episode of Braxton Family Values was in 2021, if I'm not mistaken. It was during the pandemic. So y'all haven't been on consecutively for 12 years, but whatever, semantics, right? So then after that, we see this scene where Miss E is back at the house. She's on the phone with Tawanda, and Tawanda is letting her know that, she's getting ready to go to the doctor to see what they're going to do about the cast, right? And she's talking about how she's really healing up. And then we see as Tony, Tamar, and Trina got to the house, and they were just basically like, Mama, why did you tell Logan, the 11-year-old, instead of us about you going in for surgery? Now, Miss E says that she didn't even know that it was surgery. She thought that she was going in and basically they were going to put, like how they put people on the treadmill to test them and stuff. That's what she was thinking that it was, right? Now, she did reveal to Tony that they do believe she may have to have another. Doctors believe she may have to have another surgery because they believe that there still may be some blockage in her heart. And that scene with like this scene with them talking about the stents and all that kind of stuff, it was hard for me to watch because this is exactly what happened to my mother. Because a year prior to her passing away, she had a heart surgery for blockage in her heart, and it was a success. It was actually on her birthday. And then a few months later, we had to, she had to go right back to the hospital for the same thing. So it was just kind of triggering for me. But I'm sending nothing but well wishes and good vibes to Miss Evelyn going forward. So the end of the episode, we see as the girls sit down for this big meetup, right? And when Tamar came in, am I the only person that could see the irritation written all over Tamar's face? Like when she came, because Tawanda and Trina were there first, right? Tawanda was there first, then Trina came. Tawanda is asking Trina to give her the salt. And Trina's like, girl, I can't reach the salt. Like this dress is cute, but it's tight. And so Tawanda asked producers to get it. And so then Tony and Tamar came in. And so Tony asked Tawanda, like, what are you eating? She said oysters. And Tawanda, or not Tawanda, but Tony was like, yuck. And I'm like, girl, why you say yuck? She's like, because she can't do the slime. And so Tamar was like, girl, don't you got a man? And again, you could literally see the pure irritation on Tamar's face. I was like, Tamar is irritated with this scene. You could, like I said, it was clearly written all over her face. Now, then, not Tony, but Tamar started talking about how she is celibate. She's been celibate for a year. And I was kind of with Tony. I was like, but weren't you married to that white man? And she was like, we broke up on my birthday. And Tony was like, it hasn't even been a year yet. And Tamar, like, she wants to argue with me. I was like, I don't know if it was necessarily she wants to argue with you, Tamar, or more so that she was just questioning you. But okay, girlfriend, set yourself off, right? So then we start talking. So Tamar asked Tawanda how was Tulum, and she told her, and then she asked her like how's the wedding planning going, and she asked, isn't it typically the maid of honor that like helps with the wedding planning and the dresses and all that kind of stuff? And I think it was Tony who asked that question, and Tawanda said yes. And so she looked at Tamar. She looking at Tamar. And Tamar was like, and I was relieved of my duties. And Tawanda's like, no, you weren't. And I was. So here's the thing. What I will say is, when it comes down to Tamar, is Tamar a lot? Do I think that Tamar, like I said earlier, Tamar puts herself in some drama, but when it comes to her and Tawanda, what I will say is with Tawanda, I've always had a little bit of a side eye for Tawanda. I've liked Tawanda, but I've always had a side eye for Tawanda because I realize Tawanda is someone who tries to hide, tries to portray one side like that, oh, I don't do stuff to Tamar. It's always Tamar this, Tamar that, Tamar, Tamar, right? But I do feel like Tawanda, she is just as she's sneaky. That's what I feel when it comes to Tawanda. But you guys can tell me what you think and what you feel, right? So then Tamar says that she was uninvited to Tulum. And Tawanda was like, oh, who told you that? Like, we were told that you didn't want to film with us. And so you could hear the producers in the background talking about, are we going here? And they were like, yeah, let's go here. So Tamar says, well, the reason that I didn't want to film with you guys is because of this damn cease and desist that I received, right? And she's saying it came from the family attorney. And Tawanda's like, well, I don't know nothing about that. Like, I don't deal with that, man. And so Tony is over here saying, yeah, like, I don't know anything about that. And Tamar was like, Tony, he is your best friend. Like, girl, stop playing with me. So this is where Tony and Tamar are getting into it. And honestly, as much as I love Tony and I love me some Tony Braxton, right? But Tony, this ain't looking good for you, right? I do believe Tamar when it comes down to this whole cease and desist thing. I do believe Tamar. But that's it, you guys. Let me know what you guys thought about the episode. Like I said, next week, since it looks like next week is going to be this whole big blow up, we'll talk about it live next Saturday. But that is all we got, you guys. Be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, you guys. Turn your post notifications and also share the video. And until the next time, do me a solid favor, you guys. Stay safe out there. Take care of yourselves. Wash your hands. Be blessed. And I'll see you guys in the next video. And until then, you guys, bye.